Okay, let's get going here. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jason Larson, and I'm the head of content and marketing at the International Institute for Analytics. And I'm your host for today's session. And welcome to today's webinar, the last webinar of the year for us, our 2026 Data and Analytics Predictions and Priorities, an annual tradition of ours, a very popular session. So thanks for coming. This will be fun. All right, in case you're new to the International Institute for Analytics, or more commonly known as IIA, we are an independent, strategic, outcome-focused data and analytics advisory firm. We're practitioners working with practitioners. Analytics is all we do, and we do it with a relentless focus on measurable impact. Visit our homepage for more information about who we are and how we support data and analytics leaders in making the difficult and necessary transition to advanced analytics and AI. All right, before we dive into our 2026 predictions, let's go over a few housekeeping items, starting with a question that we have for the audience. So, what is your top data and analytics prediction for 2026? We would love to hear from you all. Take a minute, say hi in the chat, and share your top data and analytics prediction for 2026. We're curious what your crystal balls have to say. All right, today's discussion will surely involve AI related topics, and luckily today marks the launch of our new AI resource hub for data and analytics leaders. We're really happy with how this is kind of turned out. Check out the hub for IIA's best resources and expert insights on enterprise AI challenges, including our new ebook, Bridging Traditional Analytics with AI, created in partnership with IIA expert Nan Lee, exclusive roundtable peer insights, and takeaways from real expert consultations. To kick off the hub's launch, our CEO Jack Phillips penned a new blog called Stop Treating AI Like a Revolution, Why 2026 Needs a Different Mindset. We're being a little provocative there. Jack lays out several governing assumptions that drive our assessment and advisory work around AI, and we hope it really provokes and generates some good discussion with the community. So take a few minutes and read that piece. It's a good one. Bookmark the AI Hub and come back often. We'll be adding frameworks and other tools and resources over the coming months to support your enterprise AI efforts in 2026. As a thank you for joining today's session, data and analytics leaders on the line who are new to IIA are available for a free 30-minute consultation with an expert on today's panel to discuss pressing and specific problems you might be facing in your organization. Use the QR code on the screen or follow the link in the chat to schedule this free 30-minute consultation. These conversations are excellent, very vivid. So I would suggest that you take advantage of it if you're interested. A member of our team, Jack Taylor, will help facilitate that call. For our current IIA Research and Advisory Network clients, you can and should schedule hour-long sessions with experts in our network to assist you with top-of-mind challenges. One-on-one expert consultations are an important part of your service, and our experts are waiting in the wings to help you. Contact the research and advisory team to scope out your inquiry and set up your next expert exchange. Last but not least, we encourage everybody on the line today to submit their questions or comments via the chat window or the Q&A feature in Zoom, and we'll make sure to save time at the end of the session to address as many questions as possible. A recorded version of this webinar will be available after the presentation. And don't be shy. Again, share your 2026 prediction in the chat. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Okay, so without further ado, we are delighted to welcome our esteemed expert panel with their polished crystal balls nestled in their laps. All three are longtime friends of IIA. They bring deep practitioner experience to this discussion, as well as to the many one-on-one conversations that they've had with IIA clients, helping them progress in their analytics and AI journeys. Kara Barclay is the former Chief Data and Analytics Executive at John Deere and the founder and managing partner of Black Antler Advisory and Consulting. Neil Bandor is Chief Data Analytics Officer at Generac, and Jeff Neiman is the Senior Director of Data Strategy and Visualization at Best Buy. Okay, so before we move forward here with our discussion, I want to throw a curveball for you all. So, Jeff, let's start with you. What do you look forward to most in your conversations with IIA clients?
Yeah, I've sat on both sides of the screen metaphorically there, Jason. I've sat in a lot of conversations where I've gone in to need an expert, and I've sat now in on the other side as an expert. And what I love most is understanding the worlds of of the people that in their own companies and their own challenges. I think I realize how small a world data analytics is really. And I also realize that we all have similar problems, and it's really encouraging and helpful to get, and I really love getting involved in their worlds.
Okay, excellent. All right, Neil, if you could give an IIA client a bumper sticker that sums up your most frequent advice, what would it say?
I'm a data analyst. I'm here to ruin your assumptions.
Woo! That's a good one. All right.
That is
I
good.
will take that to the press. Hot off the press, my friend. Nice work. All right. Kira, so what's a question you wish IIA clients would ask you more often?
Yeah, I've been on like Jeff, I've been on both sides of that, being an expert and consuming much expert knowledge. I think on the expert side, one of the things I wish clients would ask more often is what are the top three barriers to this working?
Mm.
A lot of times we talk about what's possible, but there are so many organizational barriers sometimes that it's like we don't always think about. And I think that's where talking with an expert who's actually experienced these transformations, led these transformations, you can expose some stuff that would be hard to academically expose.
Yes, yes. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. I think that's a great question that clients should keep in mind in coming to our expert exchanges. All right. Well, thank you, you three. Appreciate that. Okay, so to prime the pump here a little bit, we wanted to share a little compilation of past predictions over the past couple of years in no particular order. So let's just take a second here and look at these. In the past couple of years, we've predicted things around reusable data sets are going to be rising in popularity. Gen AI is going to grow exponentially. Synthetic data is going to reach a critical mass. We've got some predictions here around data management. It's going to rise in importance. Data governance is going to go in a new direction. The semantic or contextual meaning of data supplants manual search-based tasks. Graph analytics, that was kind of a hot topic for the past couple of years.
Yeah.
Ethical legislation is going to hit hard. We're going to merge generative creativity with discriminate prediction for business impact. So, looking at these past predictions, I'm kind of curious what you three think about, which prediction maybe captured the spirit of the past couple of years the best, and maybe which one has aged the worst. Which would those be?
Jason, I'd say the second one on the list definitely has more than grown exponentially. I mean, it's kind of a hyperbole right now in many ways, both from a use adoption and looking at the stock market. The share of mind that it occupies is just ginormous.
Mm. Hmm.
Yeah, I'd agree. Just look at Nvidia stock if you're not convinced of line number two there. But I would say if I had to critique something, and this is from the guy who runs data governance at Best Buy, what is a new direction? Because I think at the end of day, you still need data quality, you still need metadata, you still need lineage, you still need to follow compliance and privacy, and you still have the laws and GDPR and CCPA and all those kinds of things. And I think the future is figuring out how tools like Elation, Atlan, Calibra, etc., will help us scale as they leverage AI in that way. And that's maybe how I'd reframe it, because
Mm.
I don't think we've gone in terms of a new direction yet today.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, yep. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'd maybe double down on that first point, and I would say that the reusable data sets. I think we've seen more emphasis and a rise in popularity on those, somewhat based on need, right? And trying to help manage costs. Not to get into the next question, but I think we're going to see even more of that. This is a really interesting area, and there's a few of us in the industry that are trying to work on some frameworks around, thinking about data as a product, and so I think there's a lot of interest in it, and so we have seen that kind of come to fruition, and I think it's probably gonna continue.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. So
Jason, if I
I
can
think,
get one more word in,
yes, please.
I'd say the attention span on synthetic data has actually been less than what I had anticipated. I think that in my opinion,
Yep.
especially with oftentimes most analysts get pulled into things after the fact, and so it's kind of ad hoc. And the amount of value that potentially synthetic data could add to those conversations has been underappreciated.
Mm, yeah.
Good thought.
I think
Yeah,
it's
agree.
pretty on point. Pretty on point. So, why don't we dive into your predictions and priorities for 2026? And I know each of you brought a few. And I was thinking we just kind of go around the group and share one prediction and priority at a time. One feature of this session that I think folks really appreciate is the fact that we don't just try to predict the future. I mean, of course, we can't fully predict the future. We all know that, but it's kind of fun. But also, kind of the mirror image of those predictions is, what can we prioritize and how can we prioritize our initiatives, based on what we think is going to be, around the bend. So we'll do one at a time, go around the group, and then we can open it up for Q&A, or if you see a comment in the chat or a question in the chat and you want to field that organically, please feel free. But I will be curating those kind of in the background for us, and then we can open it up towards the end of the session. So, Kira, why don't we start with your first prediction and priority, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with my first prediction here, and which turns into a priority, I think, for a lot of teams. But we're all just out here riding hype curves all day long, right? And we just kind of like we've ridden one hype curve, and then we just kind of like jump to the next one, and now we're riding that one, right? And we were all on a pretty solid data analytics hype curve for a while, and lots of investment going in, a little bit more like grassroots all the way up to leadership. We've jumped over to this AI hype curve. The AI hype curve has a little bit more top down in it because, why do CEOs care? They care because they see dollar signs, right? There's opportunity to make money. There's opportunity to be more efficient. And they also care because they don't really want to be left behind by their peers. And there's always kind of that ego piece of it, like we've got to be out there, we've got to be out front, we've got to be making investments. That said, we are in a challenging time, right? Just in terms of our economy, different sectors of the economy are struggling a bit right now. And we're starting to see more kind of layoffs across the board, like just different things like this happening. So we're just kind of in a relatively tough time. My prediction for next year is that we're going to start to see a lot of questions being asked about the value of analytics teams, the value of those resources, almost a need to think about how to justify them. And you'll probably, again, riding the hype curves, maybe see a little bit more of that when the word analytics is used. I think AI is still a sexy investment. As we all know, the underpinnings of it's all the same. Ride whatever hype curve you want to ride. But my prediction is that we're going to start seeing some challenging questions being asked about investments that are hard to justify because they're very intertwined with other investments. And given that, I would really suggest or kind of prioritize, as in working with various teams and companies that I work with, that we really start to give some thought as to how to articulate the value in a way that's really meaningful to your highest level leaders.
Mm, mm.
Boy, I think Kira's spot on that because think back in time to 2012 when Harvard Business Review said data science was the sexiest job of the 21st century, which
Yeah.
I've told my kids numerous times and they still don't believe
They
me.
didn't listen, did they?
No, they didn't. And I keep telling them, this is the way it is, but they didn't buy it. But think back to that hype curve, to your point, Kira, and now we look today, but even very recently, Forbes had an article about even questioning, we've invested now, companies have invested billions in AI and yet to see the full return on investment on that. And I think all
Yep.
of this is going to get scrutinized in our economy. So I think you're spot on. That's a great prediction.
Yeah, I will build on everything that Kira and Jeff shared here. I have a two-part prediction. It starts with the idea of a pivot between creation and validation. I sort of felt like in the genetic analytics and data science world, there was a huge amount of emphasis on skills and talent and people that were creating models, analyzing, doing some ad hoc analytics here and there. I think we're going to see a significant pivot from that creation to validation of what other generative AI tools are capable of producing.
Mm.
So the creation, validation pivot will be humans as validators and these agents and engines as creators. Um, and in that same spirit, there is probably going to be a pretty significant shift in large sized investments. So I'm seeing this personally up close and personal where where you did large investments in multi-year implementations of analytics tools and platforms is all of a sudden going to start to crumble into something much more bite-sized, which you're going to have these engines create for you. And then again, the human sort of validating to make sure as these modular pieces come together and they talk to each other through protocols like MCP, ATA, and so on and so forth, you're going to start to see a lot of those small Lego blocks of analytics, tools, platforms, technologies sort of cobbled together in more agile, nimble ways to drive quick value, reuse over and over again. I think the day and age for large size enterprise platforms, both on the data analytics and process side, is probably on the horizon to sunset very soon.
Interesting. Interesting. Before we throw out another prediction here, Kara, I want to go back to this value discussion. So we actually and we can share this link in the chat. We have a really nice kind of resource hub for capturing and communicating analytics ROI. So where would you recommend somebody get started, a leader gets started on this, and or if they need to completely sort of overhaul, it's not sticking, it's not working. Help folks on the line get started.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing some comments. I mean, you have us three up here as experts. I think the folks in the chat are contributing really valuable insights as well too. So this is a community effort for sure. There is a lot still happening with the focus on the capability, right? There's a lot of solutions looking for problems because organizations are investing in the capability, right? And so you get so focused on the solution that you actually start to lose sight of problems. This is actually something really common I've been seeing with clients, like digging in with some, I would say, pretty mature analytics teams that have a lot of resources and they're so focused on capability development. You start to talk to them about the problems they're solving, the business units they're working with, and it starts to get a little fuzzy. To me, that's a red flag. That's when that starts to happen, you're going to have other people in the organization sensing that and seeing that, and it's going to cause even more of those questions to get asked. Where I always encourage people to focus is on starting with the strategy first. And this is the framework that I really recommend to people, right? Start with your business strategy first and say, what are like the 3 business problems that if this company doesn't address these problems in the next couple of years, we're going to be in trouble. Or opportunities can be either. And this C-suite every C-suite has those identified, some probably better than others, obviously, but that's kind of part of the game, right? Every C-suite has those identified. And if you really start with like, how do we support this effort? You're starting with the value first, right? You're starting with the problem that needs to be solved, and then you're going and looking for the solution. There was a comment in the chat or a question that I typed an answer to, but it's really relevant to this point. If funding or attention for analytics declines while interest in AI continues, should leaders just rebrand themselves as AI leaders versus analytics? It's part of the game, and it feels really kind of like bleh for us to say this, I think, in this discipline, but I 100% believe that's part of the answer. Because you are get to a super high level in the organization, um, they don't really actually care about the how. They just care that it's being delivered. The how is something that leaders have to manage down through the organization. And anymore, I don't even correct people on definitions. If they say AI, if they say analytics, if it's just almost not worth it unless you're actually in a technical conversation about how you're going to get something done. I think the extent to which you do that, like I said in the chat, kind of depends on the culture of your organization. Some organizations ride waves real hard, and other organizations don't. They're a little bit more conservative in that regard. So I think you have to make sure that you don't get somebody's bullshit meter up. But you have to really look at the culture of the organization and think about how to ride through that. So that's, back to your initial question, Jason, where I would really start is the top value streams. The things that the company can't afford not to do, start focusing on those. What I would caution people not to do is to try to figure out how to add up every dollar and cent in the whole company that has been supported by, generated by some sort of data and activity. It's a fruitless exercise, and it's a lot of activity with very little outcome.
So, our point of view is AI is an extension of analytics. Neil, Jeff, I would love your opinion on this rebranding question.
Maybe. We've gone through rebrandings throughout the history of this space. I remember when AI was uncool and we were scared of the word because
Ah,
think Ultron in the world of, the Marvel movies, and we were terrified that we were all going to be like Tony Stark and turn it over and the machines were going to know better than us. I mean, that's the plot of iRobot. Even you go back to HAL in 2001 Space Odyssey, right? Hollywood feeds on this concept of this. And so we were scared of that word. I remember when we were calling AI augmented intelligence. You guys remember that one? A
Yeah.
little bit of a twist that we were going to help. I view AI as an accelerator, pure
mhm,
and simple.
mhm.
If we get beyond that, then it gets scary because the thing hallucinates. And so let's use AI to accelerate our ability to get work done, our ability to be effective, our ability to, again, tying to what Kira just said, what are our core problems, business problems that the companies need to solve, period. If we get beyond that, just because it's cool and sexy, then maybe we will end up being Tony Stark creating Ultron. And that could be a scary place.
And by the way, to add to everything that Jeff and Kira have said, rebranding is the name of the game. I mean, I see myself calling old things with new names over and over and over again. I mean, today when people say AI to me, I have to often ask them, what does AI mean to you? Right?
Mm,
I mean, what traditional machine learning, we've got instances where we have AI generating ML models. Does that still mean it's generative AI? Yes. But at the end of the day, the outcome that it's creating is a machine learning model that is going to get used, but they're calling it AI. So dashboards now AI, dashboards can speak, dashboards can write themselves. I mean, there's so much going on in this space. Is that still a dashboard or is that AI? So I often have to calibrate myself in terms of what is AI, number one, and number two, the idea of how it's being branded and presented is sort of both scary and confusing from time to time. Separately, to the point that Kira made earlier, I think we're at this time and stage where there is so much pressure from boards to sort of leverage this new capability, new tool technology, that we often lose sight of, do we really even need what is generative AI?
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have a clear enough definition of what the business problem is, you're now holding a hammer that you're just ready to hit anything that comes in front of you, even if it's not a nail. Right? I had a conversation not that long ago with someone where they said they want more AI, and I said we're doing AI in everything you can imagine, and they were like, "Oh no, but that's not generative AI." So I think if that's the mindset you're going to enter these conversations with, then any prediction anyone puts out there is not going to basically fulfill unless it meets their expectation of generative AI.
Mm, mm-hmm,
Right?
mm-hmm.
So, speaking of rebranding, I mean, one can go crazy as crazy can be, as far on the spectrum as you want to push it, because you can label things. I've seen waves where you took something that had like 10 stages, and each stage was thin sliced into a new solution of its own and got its own brand, own label, own tag. And you basically then presented it as a whole new solution in its own capacity. Think supply chain, right? You went from sourcing all the way to finished product shipment. Somewhere in between there was inventory, there was scheduling. Now each of those could be separate solutions, and you could basically give it a brand new name and call it a whole new package product, whatever you want to label it. And we've been through those phases. So this is where rebranding can be, you can take it to the utmost extreme as you desire. Knowing what the business strategy is absolutely the right starting point.
Yeah, yeah.
I think,
Well, I
can I
like
add one
Aaron's.
thing, Jason?
Oh, yes, please.
Let me just add one thing to what Neil just said, because I think one thing that might be going through people's heads is how do I know to what extent I should do that in my
Mhm.
organization? One of the tricks or kind of ways that I like to think about this is thinking about your constituents, kind of your
Mhm.
stakeholders and your constituents, and
Mhm.
really asking that question of why do they care? So
Mhm.
you might have a person on the executive leadership team, you have someone on the board, you have a data scientist, and I mean, people at all levels and all areas of the organization, they all might be saying the same thing. They all might be saying, we need more generative AI, right? So in Neil's example, somebody comes to you and says, we need more generative AI. I would ask them why, three, why? They'll say
Hmm.
something. Why? Two times usually does it. Sometimes you need three, but 2 to 3 times. Um, and generally, you will get to, particularly from the top, which is where a lot of the kind of pressure and swirl comes from. You get to one of two things. You get to, I want more dollars to the bottom line. I want to save money.
Yeah.
That's you get there real fast from
Yeah.
C-level.
Yeah.
From C-level and board, the other thing that you hear is, I want to do it faster than this guy over here.
Mm,
Yeah.
So it's ego and it's money. It's these
Yeah.
two things that are really driving it. And if you can figure out, and that's not true for everybody. That's just kind of a common theme, I think, at the top. You hear very different answers if you would ask maybe your lead data scientist, if you would ask why. You're going to
Mhm.
get two very different answers from a couple layers of why from those individuals. But when you think about kind of managing all of that as like I'm managing this whole group of constituents, that can really help you sort out to what extent you need to do this rebrand that Neil's talking about.
Indeed.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, Aaron in the chat, I think this sort of solution might be a good sort of filtering exercise for the ego and the bottom line. So it says they
Mhm.
just rebranded their data and analytics team as the technology and innovation team. And they're given strategic problems to solve from the C-suite and are tasked to identify the right tools, AI, analytics, whatever is needed, which is like the premise of the ebook that I was talking about at the top
Yep.
of the session, to solve business problems. So that seems like a really pretty smart approach there. Um, okay, so let's see here. Jeff, my
Yeah.
friend, what's on your mind?
So I want to build on something Neil was just saying a minute ago. And he mentioned the analytics reporting piece. And so my prediction is that despite everyone's best intentions and theories, that AI will solve everything because I'll just be able to ask a question and then it'll tell me the answer magically. Data reporting, analytics reporting will still continue to grow. Our friends at Click, Tableau, Power BI, Looker, these tools will continue to accelerate. They will continue to push us to build more things. We will build more things. I work in retail at the end of the day. my stores need dashboards. They need to have real-time information to help guide how they're doing these different kinds of things. This has been true in every industry I've worked in automotive, in the technology space, in QSR. We will continue to grow the dashboard space because, in my opinion, hot take here, the AI things they're trying to integrate in so that they could be cool and sexy too, speaking of rebranding, aren't good enough. They're not ready for prime time.
Mhm.
And I don't want anyone in one of my stores hallucinating when they do that. And I own analytics reporting for Best Buy, so I have a vested interest in making sure that we're getting the best information to our people in a timely way that garbage in, garbage out, exactly as Kira wrote. That has got to be important. So we're going to need to lean in on that because everyone then thinks they're going to kill article after article, death of data visualization, death of this, death of that. Like they said in Princess Bride, back to another movie thing, they're only mostly dead. And I wouldn't even say they're mostly dead. I would say they're pretty much alive and kicking.
That's fabulous.
That's really good. So, response, reactions, Neil, Kira?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. I think there's going to be a continued opportunity for access to data. Jeff, I will build on what you said by saying I know a lot of people that look at this data on a mobile device. Oftentimes,
Oh, yeah.
that happens to be a phone. And so, opening up a dashboard with charts, tables, and then reading it makes it harder. So there may be some enhancements to that experience. Not to say that the dashboard goes away, but the way in which they interact with that data may look significantly different. And that's where a layer of some of the newer AI-based tools, technologies, including LLMs, may have a role to play. That'll drive more the experiential component of how they interact with data, possibly question that data in more interactive ways, and string this data together with other sources. So instead of just simply relying on one source of data, if you have semantic layers that are connected through some sort of an ontology, you now may have an ability to sort of get a little bit more sophistication at getting to that dashboard in terms of interactive conversations. So that's one. And then the
Yeah.
second piece to it is um, I'm a big fan of getting data to people quickly, but I'm always intrigued when people talk about real time as to what is their definition of real time. Because I every executive you ever talk to wants stuff real time, but what ends up happening is the long pole in the tent is you're still dependent on human reaction, which often tends to take hours, days, sometimes, and even longer in other cases. And so real time doesn't necessarily remain meaningful unless there is a window of reaction you define to it, right? In your case, as an example, if there is a shopper in the store, right, and they want to make a decision at that point when they're looking at something on the shelf, there may be an opportunity to be through real time while you have them captive in the store. But if you have somebody else that is coming in more from a browsing perspective and they're going to make that decision over the next 2 3 weeks, that real time may not necessarily be enough of a driver. So I think there is some of that definition clarification that would be needed in order for that data to be as meaningful as possible to drive the outcome that you want from the business perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you raise a couple good points there. I would say the ability to dynamically size which different most data visualization softwares are commodities. They're pretty much the same, except for in this particular example that Neil just brought up. You should think about that if you have that use case he described of how that does. But I would also say, again, back to what we've been talking about, what is your business problem and who's your audience? Human-centered design thinking 101. Your audience will determine how you visualize that. Human beings, just by our nature, the way we're wired from eternity past, we are visual. We notice patterns. We notice trends. And my fear is we jump the shark and we go too fast and we start to type in, well, I know all the questions I'm going to ask. You really don't know all the questions you're going to ask because you haven't seen the trend and you don't know why that one particular area or that one particular product domain is down today versus last week.
Mhm.
And wait, this is a Tuesday, it shouldn't be happening, or whatever that is. And so you'll see that trend, and that will never go away, our ability to need to do that in that way.
Mm.
One thing I would add on to this discussion that's related, and I get a lot of questions about this, is
Hmm.
the role of data visualization teams, the role of BI teams. Is AI going to supplant those teams? We talk a lot about, leaders, executive level leaders looking for efficiency. And I always coach people all the time, like you should look into, like, we're in this discipline. If you don't know how you can use these tools to augment your work every day, it's a little bit hypocritical to tell people that we should, they should think about how it's going to augment their work. But there is, I think, a little bit of a myth out there at higher levels that, oh, we can use AI to automate business intelligence. That is just 100% wrong.
Fully
And
agree.
yeah, and we have to figure out how to communicate why that's so wrong, and kind of make sure that that resonates and sits. But my outlook on this is the roles might change a little bit. The skills required to do the roles might change a little bit. You're going to have even more with greater access. You have more focus on data, more data issues get brought up. So you're going to see more of a need in the data space. So I can see these BI teams like having some slightly different skill sets that they have to develop, maybe a little bit more, constantly more focus on data. But I think it's a definite myth that AI is going to supplant BI teams.
Amen.
Kira,
Amen.
Akira, I'm going to add to what you said, right? And I think this goes back to the thread that Jeff started. One of my predictions in that dashboard data space is I've always been a big believer that dashboards need to be such that they drive an outcome, right? So I'm communicating through the dashboard to drive a decision. However, you now have this opportunity to bring in some of this generative AI and LLMs into the conversation, where you can do some of that discovery, where you can basically have a conversation to sort of make it more interactive instead of doing the drill downs, creating filters, adding and moving things around. Where you can now make this much more conversational. The desire for the what was generally referred to as the what if, how about, those types of questions you can now do much more interactively through a conversational layer on top of that dashboard that exists. So the dashboard still has its place, but
Mhm.
it's much more action oriented, whereas the AI layer could be a layer in between that will enable more of the what about this, what about that, how about that, and whatnot. It might be a discovery sort of a layer on top.
Yeah, we have
Well,
some. Oh, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it certainly would speed up the exploratory data and analysis that
Yep.
like we teach at grad school, that you should start there to figure it out and get to know you, Mr. Data and Miss Data. And I think it would really help accelerate. And again, go back to the phrase I use, I view AI as an accelerator. I think Neil gives a great example of how it can accelerate in terms of speed to value,
Mhm.
where business comes in and says, I want to know this, but they really don't know what that this is.
Yeah.
And then we have to kind of explore the data to figure out what they are and then get them to agree on the problem and who the audience is. But this could accelerate our ability to develop more quickly.
Yeah, yeah. We have some really good commentary in the chat here. You can automate BI to get answers, but you don't know if they are correct or meaningful. I think that is spot on. And then around the AI supplantation, only those who don't understand how to leverage AI may be supplanted, but it won't be via the AI itself. I think that's really spot on as
Yeah.
well.
There's a
Um,
lot of really good comments in the chat as well. If anybody doesn't have it open, I would love to figure out how to like them, but I must be like kind of illiterate in Zoom or something but I like all of these comments. They're really good.
Very
Yeah, it's
good,
because
very
we
good.
use too many different meetings platforms in the
Right?
course of the week.
That's right.
Can someone unify that one for us? That's not a prediction, that's an
There's the
ask.
problem.
Please.
Yes, that's a problem. That's a 2026 problem that we need to solve for sure. So yeah, if folks in the line, if you have a question that you would like to ask the panelists, please drop those in the chat or the Q&A feature. We'll turn it over to Q&A here in a few minutes. Kira, why don't we why don't you share one more prediction that you might have? So you started with value. What's another one?
So here's another one. I feel like mine are kind of dark, like like challenging and dark this year.
Ooh, dark.
And I'm so sorry. I don't mean to like rain on anyone's parade. But maybe I'm becoming more of a realist. I think that this whole phenomenon of vibe coding is going to crash and burn just a bit. I think it's going to be put in its place. That's one of my predictions for 2026. We've seen in 2025, and so like vibe coding being like AI generated code.
Hmm.
It is actually similar to the last conversation we were having about BI. It's just a different application.
Yeah.
This is actually just an amazing tool to help make coding more efficient, help speed up a data scientist's process, help speed up a software developer's process. But I think what we've seen in 2025 is misuse of the technology and actually organizations using AI to write code that ends up in production. And I mean, I saw a graphic. I think a picture is worth a thousand words, right? But I saw this graphic one time that was like this car, and it was like it had a magnet attached to it, and just all this crap like coming on, like stuck to this car in like a million different directions to the point that it can't even drive anymore. That's going to be the outcome of too much AI generated code in production because it doesn't always play nice with what you already have. It doesn't integrate. It's like all of these just bolt-ons that happen. And I think we're going to see potentially we're going to see some things crash. And if you kind of trace back, okay, why did this whole production solution why did this crash? Like, why has this been down for 3 days? You're going to dig back through and you're probably going to be able, this is my prediction, you're going to be able to point to pockets of AI generated code that had unintended consequences. So
But can
my
we get the
prediction
AI to
is,
comment their code better?
yeah, right? We need to teach AI to do that. I think you're going to see I think you're going to see some crashing there, and you're going to see what we call vibe coding in the industry right now. You're going to see it be put in its place a little bit. It has a very special place, and I think it's really good as an augmentation tool for software developers, data scientists. But production IT, 100% no.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, great. All right. Jeff,
Yeah. So, I, if we're gonna go dark, Kira, let's stay dark
let's do
in
it.
terms of our
I'm so
predictions.
sorry.
Kira's got me going in a direction now. So if I were to put the crystal ball along the way, I think back to, you remember when all the data breach, I think it was Target that had the really big one like 10 years ago, and their
Yeah.
reputation suffered and on that kind of thing. I don't think they'll ever publicly admit this, but I think we're gonna have an AI breach where something we're gonna hallucinate something and come up, and some company is going to do something wrong because they've done a poor job of preparing on the data governance side. Somebody
Mm.
wrote in here, garbage in, garbage out. Might have been you, Kira, on the comments there that I've been writing. And I think Sean from Detroit, which Detroit rocks, so yes, was talking about the need for governance on that way. Data governance, and I know because I work and live in this space too, it's not sexy. It will not be in Harvard Business Review as the sexiest job of the 21st century, but it
Mhm.
is so absolutely critical to prevent the prediction that I have from happening.
Mhm.
Because you wanna get AI to hallucinate or do something weird, give it some really bad data. You know,
Mm.
I
Mhm.
teach a graduate class on predictive modeling, basic time series stuff we were working on the first half of the semester. You put an outlier in there, and it completely wonks out your whole prediction. And that's just a time series simple machine
Mhm.
learning model. Imagine what you do that in a complex LLM or any kind of generative AI that's training on that data, and you
Mhm.
accidentally, I don't know, skip a couple decimal points, move them over, or accidentally have it be null and it interprets it as a zero. Wow. I mean, the
Yeah.
risk of what that could be. And so my prediction, someone somewhere is going to have to get that. And so your action plan should be, please, please go back to the simple basics of your anomaly detections, your data quality checks. Make your data trustworthy, make your data findable so that we can get the humans involved too, because all of the sexy AI models are at risk if we don't. So
Mhm.
there's dark for you, Kira.
Oh man, I hate to see where Neil's gonna go.
Well,
Yeah,
what
Neil.
makes
Oh,
it
even
We're really
darker,
going down a
Neil?
rabbit
Go.
hole
good?
here.
Well, in the spirit of sort of turning things around, I will say this. I think the role for governance is going to become extraordinarily important. And
Mhm.
I'll give you
Amen.
some real life examples. I mean, we are looking at some capabilities right now where we are enabling end users and users of our product to have interactive conversations with our manuals. And this is one where there is a huge amount of risk, where to the point that Jeff made and Kira, you made, where somebody could be injecting malicious content in
Oh
and
yeah.
code in
Ooh,
that could essentially
that's dark.
modify. So we are putting some very strict controls in place not to let people put something back into the system, even to the extent that we're letting people use their mobile device to take a picture with the phone or use an image to identify certain things within the manual. We are making sure that they cannot use a previously taken image, but essentially only receives an image that is taken live from a camera from the phone or the mobile device.
Mhm.
So the role of governance becomes extraordinarily important. And when I say governance here, this is not about governance from the perspective of um, legal compliance ethics. I'm talking about business governance,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
What makes sense for from a business perspective, as opposed to, is this the right thing to do? Are you essentially going to be creating some ethical concerns here? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking pure business governance, right? And this is also one where I feel like 2026 will start to put the idea of trust currency front and center, because to the point, Kira, you made, vibe coding. I think there will
Mhm.
have to come a point in time where we will have to now associate what people generate with the human and what machine generates with the machine, right?
Great point.
I
Yeah.
often find people produce stuff and claim their own when you can clearly trace this back and look at it, and it has all the signs, all the fingerprints and DNA of a machine generated content, whether that's text, whether that's code, or whatever else that might be. So I think that trust currency aspect will become very critical in 2026 and beyond. Actually, it's probably as AI continues to proliferate and permeate all aspects of our life and work. I think that trust currency will become extraordinarily critical.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we added sort of governance as its own challenge area pillar, kind of the
Mhm.
framework that we use to make
Yep.
sense of the data and analytics universe. And we kind of made that decision. Like governance needs its own pillar. It's that
Right.
important.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, and,
so
and Jason, when I said governance, I'm not even referring to the PIPL, CCPAs, the GDPRs, and
yeah,
I'm talking about governance more from the perspective of a business lens.
yeah, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Common
Just that
sense.
anomalies
Common
and
sense governance. Like,
yeah.
Yes,
that's it.
Like, does this even make sense?
Correct.
Put
correct.
Right.
put $10 million in an ATM and it's going to be taken out in a day.
Absolutely.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, and Jeff, I remember years ago there were there are cases where people made mistakes in their Excel spreadsheets, and there were accounting issues that accounted for like millions of dollars of problems. PwC had an issue almost about 20 years ago, I remember,
Yeah.
where there was a small error in a formula that resulted in a massive impact on the business results. And those kinds of things are very easy to slip through. And if you have a
Hmm.
human associated with it, there's now accountability that you create. That's the governance piece that becomes important.
Um, Jeff, in our planning call here, talking about things, you mentioned GCCs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about that. So I've worked in and out of India for 15 years, in various companies, different ways, spent a lot of time, love it, great biryani, love the culture, love the vibe. My prediction is that GCCs are going to rise in 2026, and it's going to be different. 20 years ago, when companies like Target or Ford went to India, it was a cost play. Now, Best Buy in 2024, we opened up our GCC there. And in 25, I know McDonald's opened up their GCC in Hyderabad. And I also know a number of other companies in our building alone in Bangalore. We see Delta, we see all these different companies opening up their GCCs along the way. I think American opened up a GCC. It's going to grow, and it's going to grow for a number of reasons. And then there's some challenges we have to think about. Reason number one is, hello, H-1B visas. H-1B visas may become more costly depending on how the courts sort all that kind of stuff out. If you're going to make a talent play, which is what I think we're going for, I mean, you're in the Indian economy, you're seeing, and I don't mean to be exclusive to other countries as well that are doing GCCs, but you're seeing a massive growth and availability of experienced talent that are all there in Hyderabad, in Chennai, in Bangalore, and we're trying to recruit Twin Cities. Okay, where are we going to find a critical mass of great talent, in the way? So you're going to want to, particularly if you can't bring them over through H-1B, you're going to build up a broader talent pool that can be in the office together. That way we get that whole return to work thing that's coming around. That's going to play a role too, but they can be in an office together. The challenge that we're going to have to face in 26 as these grow, and whether you're on a company that already has GCC or you're thinking about it or you just launched one, or you could have been there 20 plus years like Ford or Target, all of us will still have the same challenge. We got to keep and retain talent. And how do you do that? It's not just money, giving them autonomous, meaningful work. We're in the central time zone in the Twin Cities, 11 and a half hours difference right now between Bangalore and that. So, how do you build up that team so they can work on their own and build up those ways so that their talent is best leveraged and not waiting for the US to come online?
This is an extreme. I agree with everything you said, Jeff. I think this is going to happen more, and the driver is different. It's not a cost play anymore, it's a talent play.
Nope.
Because
Hmm.
the cost really, I mean, it used to be, from my experience, it used to be almost a 1 to 3 ratio
Hmm.
of bodies and chairs, right, relative
Yep.
to
10,
cost.
12 years ago for sure.
Yeah, and it's not anymore, which is
No.
fantastic. Like, I think that's fantastic for the market. It's fantastic for the country, for the people in India who are doing these jobs. Like, I think it's absolutely amazing. Um, the really tricky part about this is it's hard to do it right. It is
Yes,
really hard to do it right. And a
it
lot of it
is.
has to do with the time zone difference that you just talked about. And if you really are making a talent play, by definition, that's more complex work. And by definition, it is not work that lends itself to being handed off, like handoffs in 12-hour increments. Like, it does not work that way. What I don't think companies appreciate or understand fully is the investment that it actually will require for talent in both markets to travel, to build
Yep.
relationships, to figure out ways of working as a team. And if companies aren't willing to make that investment, which right now times are tight, travel budgets are being hacked, like all these kinds of things, it's going to create big problems in terms of the opportunity of success and the risk that those GCCs are putting on companies. So running them well and having the right integrations is absolutely critical for them to be successful. And it's absolutely critical to not burning out your US talent. You cannot expect people in the US to be taking calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, working all day long, and taking calls at 11 o'clock at night. It is not reasonable. And I know a lot of people that do it, and it's not sustainable.
Yep. Yeah, and you also have a challenge in that with those time zones and those things you just described, Kira. It's the domain knowledge. How do you
Mhm.
handle a situation where you just can't go to the corner Best Buy in Hyderabad or Bangalore.
Right.
It's not there, you know?
Yep.
So how do you help them learn in that domain knowledge? How do you carry that over so that again, we want to we're hiring incredibly talented people, very well experienced. How do you then give them the tools so they can get up to speed as quickly as possible on that domain knowledge so that you can have the autonomy and not fry everybody out? You can fry out the Indian side of the ocean too,
Hmm.
because they'll be taking calls, particularly in the winter when we're
Absolutely.
on standard time, and they're always on standard time in India.
Yep.
How do you keep them from staying up to midnight because your business doesn't want to have a call till noon or 12:30 Central Time,
That's
you
right.
know?
It's challenging and it can go real wrong. Oh, I feel like I'm being so dark again.
Well, we're not trying to be dark on this because I think the advantage
Realistic.
we could tie into an incredible pool of talent and experience if we bury the idea we're going to save money. Because by the
Yes.
time for travel, office, and many of your top ones, you have to part of the perks is you pay travel for, within there, and there's a lot
Yep.
of competition for what's expected in terms of that. So you bury that as a cost savings, make it a talent play. Now, what do I need? I bring in lots of talented people. What do they want to do? Solve important problems. How do they need
Yep.
to do to get there? They need domain knowledge. So we have to kind of figure out that strategy of building that up along the way.
Hmm,
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Okay, team, we have a few minutes left before we close things out. Actually, a minute or two left here. Closing thoughts. Dark, deep, positive light. What
I
do
Well,
you
don't
think?
think
I'm gonna be
2026 is as
positive.
dark.
Yeah, it's a dark. But the reason why we can sit here and talk about all these risks is because there is a tremendous amount of attention on our function and a
Yes.
tremendous amount of attention on what we do.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's a good thing. You know, they say sometimes bad press is just as good as good press, right? Like the attention is on what we all do every day. Um, and that in and of itself is a positive thing. Like we have to figure out how to spin it so that the work that actually needs to get done gets done. We have to figure out how to manage risk and measure value and build for value at the same time. Like it's challenging, but the real bright side of this is that all eyes are on us as a function. I would really encourage folks that are on the call, if you're new to IIA, to take that opportunity to grab the 30
Absolutely.
conversation. There's a lot of value there. And we talk about how there's so many common themes. And I do believe that's true. Like the underpinnings are so common, but the way that the solutions to those get executed is different in every single company. It's so dependent on the culture. And it's so, and those individual conversations can help kind of dig into some of those nuances. So that would be my encouragement for the team, is to take advantage of that 30-minute conversation. And if you are an IIA member, do inquiries, take advantage of inquiries. I know any of the three of us would love to
Sure.
connect further. So,
Yeah,
100%.
I think that 2026, we've kind of shared a lot of risks so that we could focus around how to fix them.
yep,
And governance and the whole spiel, Neil, all three of us really went on a little bit ago, is going to be a critical piece to keep from these risks from happening. But I echo too what Kira said, sometimes it's just good therapy to sit and talk to somebody who's going through the same
yeah,
thing or has gone through this, and it's going to be okay because it's not, the world is not as dark and scary and bleak as sometimes
yeah,
we in the prognostic business often, make it. I mean, so often that's how you get the headlines, right?
Yep.
Hype, bad things coming. You know, we get this in Michigan a lot. Snowmageddon is coming along the way, and then you get 2 inches. It's like, what the heck was that? It's the same thing in this world, right? We want to come in smart, aware, but then resolve toward it so that we can plan to do that. And that's where I think we can help bring value into the conversation through those 30-minute or half hour sessions.
Great, great. All right, team. Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Yes, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar in an upcoming email, and it will also be available on our website. And we do have, there we go. Yes, we have a little survey. If you could just take 1 second to fill this out, it'd be so helpful. It really helps us develop timely and relevant content for the community. Stay tuned on our email and social channels for tools and resources and other content to help you with your AI challenges. Check out that hub. Check out that blog by Jack. It's great. And again, a good place to start is that hub, which answers various questions around AI ambition, deploying AI safely. How do we structure our teams to accelerate it? All of that good stuff. All right, okay, team. Onward and upward. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Have a great holiday break, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Jason, one thing on the survey that is posted here, is one good or is 10 good? I think it would be good to clarify that aspect on the scale.
I needed an analytics professional to help me
Let's
Thank
put
you
that
very
on a
much.
bumper sticker.
10 is
I
good.
already
10 is
started.
good. 10 is
Yeah,
good. 1 is
those-
bad. Yes, 10 is good.
Thank you.
See
Thank
ya.
you.
You guys.
Bye, everybody. Have a good week.